let us know how the panel goes, and that can help inform the track for the upcoming year. So starting, I would like for the panelists to introduce themselves.
Sweet. Hi guys, my name is Cherami, Leigh. I'm a voice actor for video games, anime, done some on-camera stuff as well. I play Asuna in Sword Art Online, Lucy in Fairy Tail, Makoto in Persona 5. I worked on Horizon Zero Dawn, Call of Duty World War II, Nier Automata or Nier Automata, however you choose to, pronounce it, what floats your boat, and then some other things. Yeah. Yay.
Hard-working voice actress over here. Hi, I'm Caitlin Glass. Most of you know me from Full Metal Alchemist. I'm Winry Rockbell. Cool, thanks. Haruhi Fujioka in Ouran High School Host Club. I'm Phoebe in One Piece, Petra in Attack on Titan, and Evergreen in Fairy Tail. And I'm Cammy White in the Street Fighter series of video games. I'm a director for Funimation, currently directing the new Fruits Basket. Yeah. And all of that stuff. Whatever. Thanks for having me.
Yay. All of the applause.
And we three schmucks.
Right. Hi, my name is Sean, and I'm humbled. So I do a lot of voice for dramatic podcasts and whatever the new version of radio dramas are now called. Nice. So I was Tommy Shepard on the Young Avengers Live. I was in the Dracula Radio Play podcast published by Cryptic Canticles, which is currently re-airing online. What's the other thing I'm on? Shoot, I forgot.
I forgot as well.
Right now there's actually a promo for Hex support coming out, which is kind of like The Office with monsters. So that's a radio drama working right now. And I'm the only human. So that's really, that's been it's the best. I'm right. Yeah.
I'm Ellie Collins. I am a character actor for the Blood Crow Stories audio drama, as well as a whole bunch of other audio dramas I pop in and out of.
Cool. Yeah.
And I'm Kurt Boutin. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My bad.
I don't care.
My name is Kurt Boutin. I'm a voice actor, but I do mostly Twitch streaming and podcasting on the Giant Size Team Up Network. I currently co-host a podcast called FTH Beyond. I'm not even sure why I'm here, because they make me feel like this big.
We're just a gradient scale of talent.
It's a gradient scale.
So first, I would like for us to kind of just start at the beginning. Because a lot of people are unfamiliar with what is a character actor versus what is a standard actor. So where do you feel the defining line is between character acting and just straight acting?
That's really interesting.
These are all my panels. If you guys come to all my panels, it's 5 seconds of silence.
I feel like on camera, for on camera acting, everybody used to say like a character actor is somebody that doesn't fit into that ingenue or leading role type, and they're people that can really disappear and be a total chameleon into their roles. And now that is kind of blurred, and now we've been getting some really juicy roles where the leading lady or the leading male actor is a character actor, and they completely transform. I think an example of that was 3 Billboards last year. I mean, the 2 leading roles were traditionally considered character actors, and they're leading the film, and they did a fantastic job. As far as like for voice acting, I guess a character actor would be somebody that isn't just using their traditional ingenue natural voice. It's somebody that can really disappear and fill in wherever is needed. And there's a great character actor in Dallas that I loved working with, and it was really one of the first actors that I got to see up close and personal. It was like, you are a magician. His name is Larry Brantley, and he voiced Wishbone in the show Wishbone.
Oh, dang.
And I got to work with him when I was 10 to 12. I did a show called Paws and Tails, and he would come in and he had one series regular character, and then he did all the utility characters. And he would just go, who is this guy? Oh, he's a pigeon? Cool. All right. Yeah, does this work? And he would just do like 13 voices in an episode, and it was so fantastic to see him play the lead and then every other character. Sweet Caroline.
Yeah, I think I would probably echo what Cherami said. It's like A character actor is someone that either they're very quirky, like a side character that's super quirky, or they're completely unquirky. They're just actors who have to excel at playing the everyday people, the rest of the characters.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of both ends of the extreme. They played completely normal or completely wacky, for lack of a better term, wacky and quirky.
Kind of like the Patrick Warburton versus Gary Coleman.
Yeah, and it's well, I don't know. I'll save some other things I'm thinking for questions I imagine you might have later.
Yeah, we've got a few to get through.
I
What
would
about
just
you?
throw out for like an internalization of that. I really do think character actors pull from archetypes versus from their own self.
Sure.
Okay.
So it's sort of like you say, like, who's this guy? He's a pigeon. Okay, well, what are pigeons like?
Probably in voice acting,
And
yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why not voice acting.
We're not on camera, people.
I don't think I'd ever be considered a straight actor, like, because I even growing up had no voice that was my own, and I actually had to go to a speech pathologist and figure all these things out because they're like, why are you talking a different voice every day? I'm like, well, yeah, because I met someone yesterday that was weird, and I want to do their voice.
What about you?
I have nothing to add.
Good answer.
Kurt, you're gonna be fun tonight.
It's all I can do.
So, for everyone, I'd like to move on to how did you figure out that this was a thing you wanted to do, and how did you decide to start developing that into something that you wanted to form into a career or regular thing you wanted to do?
I think we should start with Kurt since he didn't have an answer.
Yeah. Yes.
So this does speak to
Love that.
the voice acting part of what I do. I do mainly some commercial, some e-learning stuff, a little bit of narration. So for me, and I know this is typical for a lot of voice actors, but it's that, oh my God, you've got such a great voice. You should be on radio. And I never wanted to do radio.
Not gonna lie, that was my first thought at your voice, first time I heard you.
But I've gotten those comments, and I said, at my young old age of 49, I'll 52 now, so I started late.
Oh, okay.
It's never too late to start.
That's true.
No, I appreciate that. I started looking into it seriously, and found out very quickly I needed to get some training. So I got a good coach, and we worked, and get to the point where I could do my demo and everything. But it's so satisfying to be able to just use your voice to do something like a project or the podcasting thing. I get a lot of fulfillment out of. Even within my podcasting end of things, the streaming, I do some character voices for this video game that I stream because they don't have voiceover.
Oh, fun.
Oh yeah, it's fun, except I can't do a woman's voice to save my life. So I end up just going, okay, so the next mission we have.
That's perfect. That's
awesome.
That's
That's
perfect.
hilarious,
Yeah.
though. I bet your audience will love it.
Oh yeah, it's fun. But I also learned the hard way, and I talked with Sean about this earlier today. There are some voices I should never do, and it's like Roz from Monsters Inc. And I'm just going, okay, so the next thing we're gonna do, and my voice is fried. I can't sustain that.
Yeah.
So I should make better choices.
paperwork.
Right.
I'm watching you, Wazowski.
Good job.
There you go.
We'll actually
Yeah.
cover care of voices like that later.
That's so good.
Yeah, for me, I started parroting everything around me when I was a kid, and kids at school thought that was neat, and I was the weird kid at school, but they thought it was cool if I could do other voices, and it was never really impressions. It was like, do you remember that weird lady from Kroger?
Uh-huh.
She talks like this.
Yeah.
And so that just turned from parroting everything I could hear into taking classes and then getting involved in drama school, because I found out that if I took drama in high school, I didn't have to take PE.
Lucky.
And
I know, right?
I went to an arts-focused school, so they
There
were
you
like,
go.
win us competitions, we don't care about football.
That's
it's fine.
fair. Okay.
What about you?
I mean, so same idea. I grew up just kind of mimicking voices and just loving everything about the things that I would hear and seeing if I could do that with my voice. I moved a lot, didn't have a lot of friends. And when I got into college, I had a full scholarship for engineering, and I realized very quickly that's not what made me happy with my life. So the first thing I did was took a theater class, and it took one semester, and I said, I can't, I gotta go do theater. And the first thing I was told in theater was, you'll never have a job, get a different skill. So I studied audio, and I fell into this little track. There's a couple voice actors, actresses, and coaches that wanted to do radio dramas. And so I started doing that. I'm like, this is perfect. I'll study audio, I'll study voice acting, and then I became a dancer and a bartender, and then I finally got back into voice acting.
Sorry, did you say a dancer and a bartender?
Yes.
Okay.
At the same time.
Okay.
It's been a fun journey.
Yeah.
You do you,
Yeah.
Sean. You do you.
There's an art and a science. There's an art and a science. It's all combined. It's great.
Yeah, it is. Let's see. I never set out to be a voice actor specifically, but to be an actor, yes. So I went to college to study theater. I have a degree, just a bachelor's degree in theater, and voice acting kind of happened because I liked anime, and while I was watching some in college, I watched all the way through to the credits and saw that Funimation was in the very city I lived in. And then a friend of mine from church who now he's the head of all the audio engineers at
Wow.
Funimation, but at the time, Nathaniel.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, at the time he'd just been working there for like 6 months, so he asked if I would like a tour. He even said, like, I don't know how to get you a job or even an audition,
Sure.
but I know that you like anime. Do you want to come to the studio? I'm like, heck yeah. So it was really fun to be there, and on the spot, Eric Vale was directing Yu Yu Hakusho, and when he heard I was a theater student, had me get in the box. I hadn't even graduated yet. Had me get in the booth, say a line. I came out. He's like, give your info to Tara down the hall, and you can work here. I'm like, what? Yeah, I kept trying to give him my headshot and my resume because I was a prepared actor. I brought these things with me just in case. He's like, I don't want that. Just give us your phone number. I'm like, okay, got it. And yeah, like 4 days later, I was there working on Case Closed. And within a few weeks, I had an audition for a bigger thing. And that was in January. And by the fall of that year, I was cast as Winry in Full Metal Alchemist. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. So all that to say, like, voice acting's kind of happened to me. I was not opposed to it because growing up, I loved Disney, and I love and still love cartoons. And I don't know that I'm exactly a mimic in the same way that you are, but I'd play with my voice a lot.
Yeah, she's also pretty incredible with Shakespeare.
I do a little Shakespeare. And in fact, speaking of Shakespeare, that's what my intention was after college.
So cool.
Was to like take off a year. I wanted to go like teach English in Japan just to have an adventure, and then I wanted to go study abroad and get a master's degree in the classics and specifically Shakespeare and go to England. But instead, anime happened to me, and a thing that was a gig became a job, became a career, and here we are.
Yeah.
So
cool.
yeah.
I wanted to be an actor when I was like a very, very small child because my mom's a dance teacher and one of her students was on Barney. And I remember being like, oh, hey, if she's on that show and I know her, then I can be on Barney. So that was my like life ambition at 4 or 5 years old, was to be on Barney. And my mom was like, this is a terrible business. It's going to like eat you alive. So she put me in acting classes for kids that were way older than me, so I would be like discouraged and hate it, and then she would be like, great, and then we'll move on. And I came out of the class, I was like, that was awesome! Totally backfired. So she took me to an open call for Miracle on 34th Street, thought, we'll stay here all day. She'll go and like do her audition, be like, this wasn't worth waiting all day. I loved it. They kept having me come in and do all these callbacks, and I was there all day. And I was like, Mom, can we do this every day? And she's like, great, awesome, fantastic. So she had a friend that was with an agency, and they said, we'll let Cherami come in and meet our agent. She's really difficult to impress, so it'll like shut it down, and then you'll move on. Mom's like, great. The agent was like, I have 5 minutes. I do not have time to meet this child. So I went in there, and my mom's like, great, I have like 30 minutes, and I got to go teach a dance class. And I was there 45 minutes, and my mom's like, look, I got to go. Okay, my mom amends the story. I was there 2 hours. My mom missed her class. And then I went outside, and the agent was like, I'd like to sign your daughter. And like fast forward a year, I'd been doing commercials and things like that. And the adult agent at that agency said, come hop in this closet really quick, record this thing on a cassette tape microphone, and then we're going to take out the cassette tape and send it up the street to a studio. They're casting a spot for 7-Eleven. And so I ended up doing a campaign for 7-Eleven when I was 7. And that led to doing more voiceover. I was doing Children's Medical Center spots. I started working at Radio Disney doing promos. And I'd just been doing voiceover. And then when I was 18, my agent said, hey, I got this audition for you. It's just a regular old audition. I showed up at Funimation with my headshot and resume. And Zach was like, I don't need that. Just go in the box. And I left, and they cast me as Sai and Peach Girl. And I was like, this is crazy. It's sort of like anime, but obviously it's not, because anime is just Pokemon, DBZ, and Sailor Moon. And he was like, oh, just you wait. And so from that show, I went to conventions, and they kept having more shows for me to audition for. I remember I went in for one session. I was like, this is crazy. You guys should, like, find more of these shows, and, like, you just produce anime all the time. And he was like, you haven't seen the other 5 studios, have you?
You're like, yes, this is what we do.
Yeah.
That's
So
kind of our job.
it opened my eyes at 18. I had no idea that like I could be like a voice actor for a living, because I just wanted to be on Barney.
You just wanted to be on Barney.
It's the most wholesome story. I love it.
Todd Havercorn was on Barney.
Yes, he was. Mr. Knickerbocker.
Mr. Knickerbocker.
I will never let him forget it. I almost was on
Bobby
Barney.
Bop.
I was 8 years old. I was playing a bully on a Christian kids show, and I know, and I turned 9 on the set, and it was my birthday, and everybody on the show, all the other kids were on Barney, the director and the producer worked for Barney, the makeup artist was on, like the whole team, and they knew for the 2 weeks that I was there that all I wanted to do was be on Barney. And I remember on my birthday, the director was like, hey, let me talk to you really quick, and I was like, it's happening. This is the moment. My dream is coming true. And he was like, I'm not going to put you on Barney because I think it's going to ruin your career. And I was like, dude, this is my career.
I'm 9. I'm 9 years old.
Yeah, I'm going to work till I'm 12. I'm going to retire, and that's going to be it. So I was never on Barney. It didn't ruin Demi Lovato and Selena Gomez's career. They're doing okay. But everybody has a different path, and that's all good. Maybe I can, like, do a revival of Barney on Netflix.
Maybe
and
they'll
like
make
direct
Barney the
it.
anime.
Ooh, yes. So good.
So speaking to the path that you were on, so the age-old question that anyone in voice acting gets is always, how do you get into the business? But I think that the more pertinent question that people don't think to ask is, how do you stay in the business? Because this is a very brutal industry, and it's a very tough one that requires a lot of sacrifice. So what is the advice that you give to people in staying in the industry?
Well, I've almost wanted to quit so many times because I've been like, how many times can people tell me there's so many things wrong with me without it just like breaking my soul? And
You mean show business in general? or
yeah,
voice
yeah,
acting?
just in general. And I had they'll tell you like for on camera, like, you know, you could get this job if you're just like a little bit thinner, or if your face was like a little bit more symmetrical, or if you're just a little bit taller, if you're more blonde. They will nitpick at everything, and it's nothing personal, or it's not you, it's us, and it's like no, it is you, and it is personal, and that sucks. So there was one time I was like so close, and I didn't book a job, and it had been back to back, and I'd been second choice like 5 times in a row, and I was like, how much longer can I do this and still be okay? And my manager said, if you can do anything else in the world and be as happy as you are being an actor, you need to do it. But if you cannot do anything else that makes you as happy as being an actor is, you got to keep doing this. So I say what keeps you in the business is your love of being an actor. And when it gets hard and when you get rejected, you get back in a class, you go play, and you take all the pressure and the competition of needing to book the job out of the equation, and just get back to work and remind yourself why you love it.
Way to go, man. I cannot beat that answer. That's awesome. I also received similar advice, not because I was in the same type of situation, but rather still in undergrad, we had a visitor come in who was a camera actor and working actor, had been working his whole life, and that was his exact advice to us as students all about to graduate in the next year or so, saying, if you can picture yourself doing anything else in the world and being happy, go do that.
Yeah.
Don't be an actor.
Yeah.
He's like, but if this is it, if this is the only thing that will like fulfill you, then keep at it, and glad that you're here.
Yeah.
So like I think of that all the time, and it's at the time and still now I can't imagine doing anything else besides acting. But as far as how, so say you've received some modicum of success, and for some amount of time you continue to book work, and you feel like maybe I've arrived, maybe this is it. Don't get comfortable.
Yes, totally.
Don't ever get comfortable. That doesn't mean that you can't relax, because that's important to relax and to rest and to breathe and to pat yourself on the back for a job well done. But I notice a lot of the younger generation of up and coming voice actors kind of mistake like getting a small part in a little thing as being like the epitome of everything and the thing that's going to get them convention invites and then money from that, and they think that they can just kick back and just wait for someone else to be like, you were Soldier A in that one show.
Get in here.
Come in here in the booth.
Do you want to be a Disney princess now?
Yeah. And so don't do that. Awesome. You worked hard. You earned whatever part that you got. But don't get cocky and don't get lazy. Just understand that you're that close to not getting the next gig.
Yeah.
So keep at it and have the same drive and desire at your next audition for the last one that you did book,
Mm-hmm. Sean?
I concur. But it's absolutely that. Also, do anything else that you love. And by that I mean, if there's something else that brings you joy, it doesn't have to be professional.
Yeah.
Do that. If you like cooking,
yes.
I make instruments in my free time because it's something physical I can do that doesn't actually require me to talk at all. I just get to go make something, and when I'm done, and I love audio and I love sound, I have something I can play or I can give to a friend or I donate to charity and I can sell and help someone else, and that whole cycle is very, very satisfying to me. And that way when I go to an audition, I can just approach it, and you gotta be hungry. You gotta really, really put everything you have into an audition, and if it's not where it should be, well then you keep working next time, but then you can make that thing, put it out there, know that you did your best, and then keep working at the rest of your life that you need to make you happy. Because I severely doubt that any of us are one-sided and are only an actor.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Or,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess actor would be apply to everyone, but you've all got something else going on, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's true.
So,
Well,
and those things help you.
That's a good specification to make, because when we say can you imagine doing anything else and making you happy, they mean career-wise,
Sure.
professionally. There are tons of things that make me happy.
Totally.
But you can't really make a career of you know what I really like? Sleeping in. So but that's not what we mean. I think that's excellent advice to have
You
a hobby.
could
Have something else
Sleep,
too.
what is it, sleep research?
Yeah.
You could do
You
that.
could technically sleep for
Part-time job.
Part-time job, yeah.
With mattress tester.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
don't put your whole life into your acting basket, because there are going to be times where it's a feast or famine situation sometimes.
Also, if everything is in acting, if that's the one thing you do, you don't have anything else in your life, if you don't book that job, or you go in for that one audition that you get once every 6 months or once every 6 weeks, more than likely you will implode in the audition, because the pressure is so high. There's desperation in your essence, and the casting director and the producers are like, gosh, so talented. There's just something about them that's so intense, and I just want to be around somebody that makes me feel relaxed, because they are stressed. They are on a crazy deadline. They're dealing with money. They've got to get all these things done. The director has so many people breathing down their neck. They don't want an actor that they're going to feel like, oh God, every time I go near this actor, I don't know if they're going to cry or if they're going to yell at me. They just want to feel like this is a creative space and they can relax and create. So if you got other things going on, it makes them feel comfortable, and it's a collaborative experience, and they love you and you love them, and it's a wonderful, happy family where everybody feels safe.
Yeah, for me it was getting involved in other aspects of what I wanted to do.
Totally.
Because I loved voice acting, but I also love cosplay, which turned into working in film as a costumer, and I've done some wonderful things in film as a costumer. I got to work on the Constantine pilot. I've worked on reality televisions, shoe commercials. Somebody's got to hem those pants.
Yeah.
And then, and when I moved to Atlanta, I needed money to move to Atlanta, but I wanted to stay involved in film and acting. So I did a one-day extras gig and just really did my best on that one-day extras gig. And that turned into a featured recurring extra, which turned into getting to audition for the CW. And thankfully that didn't work out. That would have been a, whew. I would have had to move. But so I just found ways to stay involved in every aspect of it. So I'm still in the world and I'm learning other sides to it. Like I now know things about lighting that I never knew because some indie film needed a PA for lighting. And I said, sure, because I just wanted to stay involved in the industry any way I could. And no job is not a learning opportunity.
Yeah,
What about you?
I have no. So actually, as a newer voice actor, voiceover guy, one of the pieces of advice I got really early on was twofold, really. One, persist. Mm-hmm. Just keep going. Just keep going. The other one that really helped me out, because I'm the kind of guy, send off an audition, I want to know, did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? And not only did I get it, but if I didn't get it, what can I do? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? You never get that. Nope. Right. Yeah. So I learned, and from this the woman I was coaching with, she basically said, audition, let it go. Mm-hmm. Just let it go. And then my life got easier. Yeah. It's just like, okay, what's next? Yeah. Okay, and if it comes in, great. If it doesn't, what's next? Yeah. So yeah, that's really all I have for
the
that.
The majority of our jobs as actors is auditioning. Actually.
Yeah. Totally.
We're professional auditioners.
That's
and then
absolutely true.
When you book the gig, that's like the bonus.
Yeah.
That's like getting a bonus.
It's
like,
fun part.
I get to act and be paid for it instead of just auditioning all the time. So yeah.
So
it's super important to be comfortable auditioning, and so I always tell people, they're like, I don't want to do this community theater audition, I don't want to do this play. I'm like, if you don't want to do the play, that's fine, but go do the audition just so you get experience, and do a wacky character. If you don't want to get cast in the play, do something totally off the wall that doesn't fit, that is something you want to work on, and then if they book it, you're really good at that role.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that backfire on me before.
Yeah.
And then you get stuck as a year on a podcast doing a voice that is very painful.
And then you're like, wait, this was a twofold lesson, wasn't it?
This was twofold. This was do it a bit more seriously and be careful, the fans might love that character. So moving on to professional versus independent. Different recording experiences, obviously, versus a professional booth or an independent production. What do you feel are the benefits and pitfalls of both sides of it?
I think it's super important to do indie stuff because, like you said, you learn so many aspects of the industry, and it makes you a better actor so that when you end up on a really big budget professional set, you are super aware of, like you said, the gaffer and the first AD, because you know what it's like being in their shoes, and you can make their life easier as an informed actor. And you don't get that experience on a professional set because there's so many people of like, hey, do you need any help with this? And they're just like, no, just stay out of the way. On an indie set, they'll let you try stuff, and they'll let you help out, and they'll talk to you, and they'll have some time. And it's also, there's an indie film I worked on, they're like, look, we just don't have the time, we gotta get like 10, 11 pages shot in a day, which is absurd. Like most of the TV shows or big budget films you work on, it's maybe 4 pages a day. So you really learn how to like work under the gun, make every take count, don't break the take, figure out how to improv your way out of it, and then let the editor have fun. They always have extra footage. And so that, when you do show up on a huge set, they're like, man, I'm not wasting anything on this person. And like you said, they'll upgrade you to another role because you're ready to go and you're informed. And so indie films can also turn out to go to Sundance or be touring or end up getting distribution, especially with all these streaming sites buying so much content. You never know where it's going to go. Film festivals, who's going to see it? So when people say, I did one professional gig, I don't want to do anything indie anymore. If you don't have the time in your schedule, that's one thing, but you're never too good to work with other people. You never know what's going to happen, how it's going to affect your career, and who you're going to work with. So I love doing that kind of stuff. I think it's great.
Caitlin?
I don't really know that I have much to add to the conversation in that
That's
regard.
my line.
Well, only because as far as voice acting goes, as I mentioned, it was never my intention to become a voice actor. nowadays there are plenty of people that is their goal.
Sure.
And the best place to start is at home with a home studio and this rig and just sending in auditions to indie game developers and random people who need people to do their phone announcements. And I'm so blessed and fortunate that that was never my situation.
Yeah.
So I feel like I would just be like making up stuff right now. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. I walked into Funimation and they gave me a job. What do you want?
You know, the little known indie company known as
that's
Funimation.
right. I don't know.
What about you, Sean?
I feel like I'd be repeating. I mean, independent stuff to me is just where you get to be a little looser and more creative. So really what you were saying,
Yeah.
like when it's big budget, like all right, you gotta be on time, ready to fire, ready to go,
Yeah.
do it. But indie, you're like, oh, well, can I try this voice? Can I do a little something extra? Can I just be a little different? And if you're doing it yourself, or you're starting out at home, I actually built a studio in my house because I'm a nerd and like to build stuff. So I got to literally go through the process of how do you soundproof a wall? You know, what is it like when you're actually putting all these things together, and why do you don't? So in a studio, generally, you don't ever build walls at right angles. You do it so there's no parallel surfaces. That way, your sound isn't bouncing off and doing a direct reflection back towards the source, which is usually right by the mic, source mic. So I got to learn that, and I was like, this is fantastic. So there's a lot of extra learning bits that you can get from doing indie stuff.
And I would echo that, because with having to put together stuff in the home and in our first studio, learning those aspects made me more cognizant of the voice that I present. Because if I have to do a yelling scene, now I understand better how this room is set up, why it's set up this way, where do I need to stand to do that. And I like having that knowledge internally versus having a director tell me, because now I understand where it's coming from and I can put that forth a bit better.
I actually have favorite parts of my booth for different things.
Yeah.
Like which corner I like to use.
And I literally don't have a whole lot to add, but I've only ever done any independent stuff. Just I haven't had the opportunity to do any studio work. So what I did find, though, when I would do a commercial or something, is there's a lot more opportunity to play. It was like, well, let's try this and let's try this, and just asking, hey, can I put this spin on it and see what happens? And they seem to be really open to that because they just want a good product.
Yeah.
Right. And it feels like the studio end of things is a little bit more rigid than that.
Yeah.
They just usually don't have the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least if you're speaking commercially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
When it comes to things like anime, it isn't that we don't have the time to play. It's more that because it came from Japan and it's already been animated.
Sure.
It's not like
Right.
do whatever you want to do. It's like no. Play within these
lines.
parameters. Yeah.
Pick your color, but it's got to stay within these lines.
Exactly.
And so we've talked about industry a bunch, so we'll get to the actual voices part of it. When you do voices, some people, it just comes naturally to jump into a voice. Some people use trigger phrases, like something that you repeat in the voice that gets you into it. How do you prefer to approach getting into a voice, especially if like you record a season and then you have to come back a few months later and record it again?
The engineers are usually really nice and have references.
Yeah.
And they'll usually
anime,
play like
yeah.
a couple reference lines, and you go, oh, cool, that's where that is. And if you've played it for a while, you know how to jump in. If it's a character I haven't done before, they'll usually play my audition. And if I did an audition, then they just tell me, this is kind of what the character we're looking for. What are your first thoughts? And then, we just mold the clay into what they might like. But I guess if it's a character I've played before, I do love those magical engineers and their references.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting in anime because characters can look very extreme. So you would imagine that they're all characters as far as character voices go. But as a director, I mentioned this in my panel yesterday, so apologies if you were there and heard it already, but I'm actually not looking for those types of voices because the circumstances for most characters are so extreme, because the way they look is so unrealistic, because it's often a fantasy environment. I'm looking for voices that sound very natural and real so that you as an audience member can connect with them. So I'm listening for people who can act and
Yeah.
who can tell a story with just their voice alone and not their face and not their body. And if it calls for it, they understand their instrument enough. If I'm like, pitch-wise, I need it to be lower, or the age needs to be younger, or can you please make it breathier, or other types of adjectives that have more to do with their state of mind, like please more innocent, or more evil. You know, that's very broad. But those types of things. What was the first part of your question there?
Just getting into the voice.
Getting into the voice. Yeah. So because we do make reference lines, that's extremely helpful. But I think unless you're playing like a character in, say, like One Piece, that, you know, there's a certain look to them, and a lot of the sound of their voice is determined by how they look. Are they big and barrel-chested? Do they have an overbite? Do they have a massive nose? You know, those kinds of things actually will change the voice. But by and large, most anime is not that.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a hero, I'm the hero's best friend. I'm the pretty girl, I'm the pretty girl's friend with bigger boobs. You know, it's like, you know, it's whatever. I'm the girl who looks 12, but she's actually 87. Like, you know?
Right, sure.
it's things that are more like that. So sometimes I'll hear a reference line for some show because they have them for everything, and I go, oh, that's just me. That's just my voice. Okay, cool, let's go.
Yeah.
What about you, Sean?
Similar. Like I usually need some kind of line that I can draw from and understand, especially if it's an accented character. But outside of that, then I just need like an archetype of some kind, either a visual reference or it's just think Arnold Schwarzenegger but American accent. Cool. And so the going off of those touchstones, and like you were saying, like then I can start to kind of mold where the character and the voice are supposed to go. And actually, honestly, like this last year, so I do still bartend, doing Arnold voices. Like I just developed that voice at work just for fun. and that's been probably the most fun thing for me. So then now I have that voice in my pocket. Great. No one's ever gonna need it.
You never know.
But having those reference points, and especially if you're gonna start auditioning, building those touchstones, so then you can kind of start drawing from them and combining them and matching them up and go, okay, that's where that needs to go.
Yeah, a lot of our actors on Blood Crow use trigger phrases because we'll record 3 episodes in a day, and then we don't see each other for 2 months and record 3 more episodes. And so a lot of them will develop, like, what's one thing that my character will say that I will never forget it. And for anyone who's seen our show, Mary in season 1, to get into character, every time she would go, Tommy, why does food need stamps? Are they sending letters? And she would just say that every time, and then she would hit every single take the first time. And she just had to say it every time she got in the booth, and it hit it every time. And so, you know, they found that super helpful because then for them as upcoming actors, they can remember a sentence more than they can recall a voice at the time. And they're like, that's the sentence I used to get in the posh voice. Okay, we'll do that one. And so that's what they use.
Well, for me, because I'm not generally a character actor, character voice actor. Anything that I do it just relies on me. So this video game that I do on Monday nights, at 7 p.m. on twitch.tv/FTHBeyond.
Shameless plug.
I got to do something.
Yeah.
Plug away.
So it's a Marvel superhero game, but they don't do voiceover. So I just make up everything. Cool. And so I rely on myself just to, okay, what do I think this character sounds like? The fun part is maintaining the consistency between scenes. Because in any given night, if I'm doing that, it's 10 to 15 characters. And it's just like, okay, it's easy when I am Groot, you know, but then you've got Captain America and Hawkeye, and how do they sound different from one another? They have to, and just figure something out.
Yeah.
But I maintain the consistency. For me is just, that's the fun part of playing on those nights.
That sounds like my D&D sessions. When they go, oh, we want to talk to every single shopkeeper in the town. I'm like, oh, that's 10 voices. Okay. But yeah, so with character acting, especially with anime, with the bombastic personalities and attitudes, what are some recommended throat care techniques and voice care techniques?
I mean, water.
Really?
Throat coat.
As we've all been.
Throat coat is great. And if something starts to hurt, don't push it. And also, when you have a session, this seems like common sense, but don't go out partying and celebrating that you have a session the night before. And sometimes, no, you just gotta not talk to let it heal.
Yeah, that's true. Sleep.
Yes.
Sleep is the best thing that you can do because that's however many hours that you're sleeping that you're not talking.
Yeah.
So, you really have to get yourself into the habit of a good sleep schedule of 7 to 8 hours of sleep if you can manage it. What if you're bad at that? Go see a doctor about it. I'm not kidding.
Ooh, yeah,
I'm not
seriously,
kidding.
go get that sleep. What? Oh, I was saying, go do the sleep
Study.
Sleep
testing.
study.
Yeah, sleep
find out
study
what's up.
stuff. Figure out what's up.
Yeah,
But yeah, all those things, sure.
I think as a regular out in the world human, there are plenty of people that don't like doctors, hate doctors, think they don't need them. That is not an option when you're an actor because your body is your instrument, is your livelihood. So, get over your fear of doctors. It sucks having to pay for health insurance. Look, this is not a panel about healthcare in America, but just suck it up because you need it.
Yeah.
And you just have to have a good doctor that you have a good relationship with, who understands what your job is as an actor. Somebody that, I can text my doctor and let him know, I've got a throat tickle, I need a such and such, and he'll call it in for me. That's the kind of thing that you need going on. So you have to stay hydrated. Like Cherami mentioned water. It doesn't just mean drink it while you're in the booth. Hydration is a state of being. For real. So, and we also travel a lot. We're on planes a lot, and that sucks the water right
That's
out of
the
you.
great thing about planes, though, is I will always have 3 bottles of water on the plane, and I'm like, you're trapped here. You're drinking all this water before you get off the plane. And you have to make sure, because it's hard when you're in a session. Sometimes you're talking the whole time, and then you realize I've not had any water because I've been so engaged in the scene that you got to keep reminding yourself, please have some water.
Yeah.
Sean?
Man, I hope you have an aisle seat.
Oh, always. Requirement, man.
Me too. So outside of those, which are those are incredibly important, and those are things you have to do every day. So I always think of just vocal warm-ups and stretches, and half an hour ish before, and then right before you go into a booth, warm up your voice, activate your lips and your tongue and your throat, and remind yourself of good posture, which I just didn't have until I said it out loud.
It's been a long day.
Yeah,
I'm tired, and I didn't do all the other things that we're supposed to be doing. So if you don't know any warm-ups, of course you can find them online. You can grab a book on voiceover and just voice actually, any kind of vocal care. Kurt and I were talking earlier. Choral warm-ups are very similar to theater warm-ups, are very similar to any other kind of acting warm-ups for your voice. But really get engaged with what you're using, because if you're not paying attention to it, it'll just kind of waffle and fall apart. So warm up.
Yeah,
kind of like
it's a
stretching
muscle.
before you run.
Yeah. It's a muscle. It needs work.
Yeah.
The thing that I learned very early on is if your voice is hurting, you think your voice might be going, stop whispering.
Yeah.
Don't whisper. It actually makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah, again, Sean and I were talking in another panel about warm-ups and whatnot. I do a lot of singing as a side hobby. I sing in barbershop quartets and a couple other a cappella groups.
That's
And,
very fun.
and so a lot of the vocal warm-up stuff that we do is very applicable to just voice in general. And so if I haven't been talking all day and my voice has been just stagnant, I have to do warm-ups because otherwise it's all kind of it's just bad. And so that usually has to do with breathing warm-ups, vocalizing, and just something as simple as doing the bubbling thing and adding tone to it, just getting it all going and getting it all activated. So when you do open your mouth, there's actually something there. At least, hopefully, something worth recording. And so from my perspective, from what I do, my vocal warm-ups for speaking are no different than what I do for singing.
So I think with our last 17 minutes in here, we're going to open it up to questions. We have the catch box. This is a microphone. It is ultra padded. So they will toss it to you and you can speak into it.
How cool.
Yeah. It's so neat.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
Why doesn't everyone have this?
Hello? All right, there we go.
Hey.
Levels good? You good? All right.
Yeah.
I'm enamored by that thing.
I know, it's really cool, right?
That's so cool.
I can toss to you when I'm done.
I will not catch it. I am uncoordinated.
Well,
I'm an actor.
All right, so has there ever been a script that you've seen that when you're reading it, you've either absolutely loved or completely hated, and then when you approached it from a different angle, the exact opposite happened? So if you had a script you read, you were like, oh, I'm so happy I finally can do something like this. You read it, you hate it, and then you just change it a little bit, and you've just suddenly fallen back in love with this character, role, or script in general.
I had an audition for Bones, and I was so excited to have this audition. And then I opened it up, and usually when I read a script, I'm emotionally moved at the emotional beats in the scene. And for this one, I was like, I feel nothing. This audition is gonna tank. And I had the worst audition. I was stuck in traffic. I was running late. I tripped and fell. I was bleeding in the audition. Like everything that could go wrong went wrong. I walked in, the director, the producer, the writer are there, and the casting director. I'm like late, sweating, bleeding. I'm like, this is not, and I don't feel like I can do the best performance because I just was not connecting with the character. It was a really awful audition, really awful. And I remember leaving, crying, being like, that was a waste of time. They're never gonna call me back. I totally made a fool of myself. I had to fly back to Dallas the next day for a session and a film premiere. And I got off the flight, and my agent was like, you booked it. And I was like, how? And she was like, they just loved how raw you were. And I was like, literally raw, bleeding on their floor. And I was supposed to get super emotional. My character was suspected of killing someone, and I could not get tears out of my eyes for the life of me, and it looked like I killed her, who cares? And they were like, wow, that was so raw, and just the look of her, you would never think she would just be that savage. It was a really unique interpretation. And then I get to set, and they were like, so we actually do need the more innocent, heartbreaking performance. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how you're gonna get that. I really don't. So I was terrified. I was like, I'm gonna get fired from this show. This is so embarrassing. And I remember I was on set, of course, sitting in front of David Boreanaz and Emily Deschanel, 5 cameras on me. I'm sitting on set. I'm like, do not screw this up. Literally, all eyes are on you. And then it was just doing my best to cry, and it was not honest. It was seeming forced. And the director goes, you're right there. Just let go. And I gave up. I don't have anything. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I do not remember what happened. I don't remember doing the scene. I don't remember anything. And then I finished. He said cut. And Emily was like, that was beautiful. Are you okay? And I was like, did I say all the lines? And she goes, man, you were in it. So I watched the performance. I was like, wow, I don't remember any of that. And so what started out as the worst experience of my life ended up being one of the most magical moments where I was totally lost in the character, and I have no idea how to replicate that magic ever again. So, but yeah, it was something I was like, I hated this audition. This is gonna be the worst experience ever, and it ended up being man, sometimes acting and character work just really shocks you, and it comes out of nowhere, and all you gotta do is just let go and exist and enjoy the moment, which was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Story.
But yeah, just bleed, and then they'll be like, oh, it's so raw, and you'll get the job.
So authentic.
So it feels like she really was bleeding for it. Oh, she was.
She was. Next question. Scott.
Hello.
Hello.
So my question would be, for example, have you ever had a funny moment where the people, they were looking at you when you were recording, you something like that, something with your stomach, you feel funny, you ate something or something like that, and they were just messing with you all the time. For example, I think because I did voice acting in Spanish, but it happened to me once. And they were just laughing at me. Oh, be careful with the pops, soda. Be careful with that.
Anybody?
I've had a bunch of experiences with that because we have that play with our actors They'll say stuff and we don't let them forget it. Our fans have a joke of the forbidden bloopers of just things that will never come to light.
None of our actors can ever run for office.
No, they can't. But I think that's part of what can make a recording session go really well is having that rapport where you can dig at each other because it takes a lot of the nerves out of it. That's just my thought.
So was this joking, or is this... I thought he was asking if you ever got sick in the booth.
Oh, yeah, I have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then we just joke about it. We just don't let it go.
Who hasn't? I have a independent project of mine where I'm going to end up having to voice multiple characters. So you already touched on this when you were playing your D&D master and you're playing 10 characters, you're doing utility work. Other than the standard pitch, placement, accent, what kind of mental tricks do you play with to find all that variation so that it doesn't sound like one person recording the same thing 10 times?
I go grocery shopping and listen to every single person in the store, which is it's the mimic thing. If I'm just like, I got no idea what I want to do, and I'll just go grocery shopping for a little bit and just listen to everyone around me and pick up things that maybe I haven't thought of before.
Yeah, sometimes it's about, you're in a position where I don't want to have to play all these characters. It isn't ideal, but here's where we are. So if I could have more actors, who would I want in these positions? And then I try to imagine those people. And for us at Funimation, there are a lot of actors, but we're a pretty tight-knit group. And the vets have been working there long enough that we can just think about a person and understand how they would read it and know what they would do. And like, my voice isn't like Cherami's and hers isn't like mine, but sometimes just by thinking enough about how Cherami performs, it can inform my own stuff. So while it's still my voice, something about it will be different enough. So I think if you can think of a Hollywood actor or some other person and go like, yeah, I really wish that this was played by Benedict Cumberbatch, or whatever, and think of that in your mind, that could help you, in addition to all the other things you already mentioned.
I'd say have a picture, if you can, even if it's not of the character, but of what you think the character would look like. That can be really informative. And also think about musicality of someone's voice, like, because everyone's voice has a different cadence and different kind of quality, whether it's very staccato or very the opposite legato, very rhythmic.
Yeah, and you are all fortunate with your podcasts and radio dramas and things that you get to alter things like that. And in anime, we can't really, because flaps are already there. So the cadence that you naturally have is usually the one that you have to go with. Well, you can sometimes alter your intonation, where in the sentence you emphasize and stuff like that. But pauses, they're already written in for you. So,
my question is, I'm sure you guys probably go to like professionals to get voiceover reels done. But if you guys create your own reels, where is like a source you like to pull content from?
I'd say something that I learned is a great place for say a commercial demo is magazines. So if you need copy, because that's what we call it, copy, the stuff that you read, get copy from magazine ads, because it's legit stuff that some professional has already been paid to write, to sell you a car, a diamond ring, this shampoo, whatever. So, and you can gain a lot from looking at those ads that help you decide what to do with your voice, just by looking at the pictures. So, and then for a character demo, comic books. Dialogue's already been written for you. So, yeah.
All right.
Oh. Okay, so I was wondering, when it comes to someone who's just starting to getting into voice acting, how do you go about finding places to audition and reaching out to people, whether it be online or in person, or how do you go about doing that, going to find new people and stuff?
So in the podcasting world, there are still some active Tumblrs that exist. I think there's a Discord channel called Voice Actor Connection that's strictly for podcasting. And we're also a very familial group. So just reach out to a podcast, ask if they're looking for voices. And if they aren't, they may say, but I do have this friend. And like, well, Kurt needs a voice. I don't need one, but talk to Kurt. And so with podcasting, you can just find those networks and then just start talking to people.
Voice Bank. Voice Bank has auditions. You guys are in Atlanta. There's agencies. You guys, when you've taken classes and you feel comfortable, and I mean, I would wait till you feel real comfortable, because if you meet with an agent and you're not ready, you might have burned that bridge for a little while. But yeah, agencies are great. They'll be getting hopefully more legit work, and they'll filter out anything that might not be have your best interest at heart.
Next question. I think we got time for 2 more. So this one and 1 more.
Have any of you found any use for the International Phonetic Alphabet?
Pardon?
The International Phonetic Alphabet. Have you studied it, and has it been any use for you?
I know the military phonetic alphabet.
So, like the way they spell things in the dictionary, like that's IPA.
Okay.
What? I don't know. I feel like if I say no, I'm going like, that's stupid, which is not what I'm saying at all. It sort of depends on how you study dialects. If dialects are your thing, some people have a knack for it, others don't. I know a particular book that I use, the author of it that came up with his own phonetic alphabet that just served the purpose of teaching dialects to actors much more easily than using IPA. But the thing is, you have to learn his system in order to read the book. Mm-hmm. So I honestly, if you spelled something out in IPA, I wouldn't know what that is. Because nowadays, unfortunately, with the internet, I go to Merriam-Webster, I type it in, it spells it in IPA, and then I just press play, and somebody says it for me. So, yeah, I hate to think that something as developed as that could be honestly outdated, but a little bit.
Well, I guess it like she said, it depends on if you're more of a visual learner and seeing it helps you, or if you're more of an auditory learner, hearing it helps you. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just however your brain learns.
Yeah, I use the IDEA, which is the International Dialects of English
Archive.
Yeah. I used that because I was having trouble with accents earlier with implementing them fully, because you can get an accent technically correct, but if you can't emote through it, it'll sound wrong.
Oh gosh, and the trouble with dialects is that when you use them in acting, it's very different from trying to pass yourself off as someone from that country. Like this isn't Mission Impossible. Okay, where you need to blend in and sound like you're actually from the Ukraine. Yeah. You do need to sound like you're from there when they cast you, but usually if a casting director or a director puts a dialect in the audition side, it's their idea of what they think that is, and then they'll say like a light accent, and like, well, how light is light? Yeah. So then you end up having to send them 3 different versions to prove, I know this dialect, I can do it this heavy to this light. And then there's, like you said, you have to be able to act through it. And sometimes what they're looking for is more the stereotype of the accent or the archetype of the accent. I was just cast in something, I can't tell you what it is, but like I paid a dialect coach to learn this dialect because I felt that what I knew was the more cartoonish version of it. And she was really strict with me about, no, do this, you've got all the sounds right, but you're doing it's too big. It needs to be more like this. Look at this character. This is what she should sound like. I'm like, you're absolutely right. I booked the gig, but it turns out that what they wanted is what she was directing me away from. Yeah. And you wouldn't have known that by reading these lines, by reading the instructions that they gave you and seeing the picture of this character. So this was not your question at all. This was just more information about the trials and tribulations of being a voice actor.
And we got time for 1 more question.
Hey, so my question, you talked about earlier about having trouble sort of crying on that set. Yeah. So I wanted to know, when it comes to emoting, how much of that is sort of pulling from personal experience and sort of bringing back the past to create emotion, and how much of that is just technique as far as modulating your throat and voice and muscles?
Depends on your background.
Yeah, I think it depends on you as an actor. I can call forth emotion pretty easily, but it will take a lot out of me, so I usually have to take a small break after scenes like that. But I know we had someone on our show that she had to play both herself terrified and herself possessed. And we said, well, you can do the terrified part first, and then we'll do the possessed part. She goes, no, we'll do it in one. And she would just flip in between them. And the whole scene flowed. So if you've listened to season 1, Fiona's possession scene was all done in one take. So some people can do it. It just depends on what is easier for you.
I studied method acting, Meisner specifically, and so you start out, well, the part of that applies is that you start to look for touchstones in your life, in your personal background that mimic and simulate those experiences that you then need to bring back up for your scene. So I keep those in store. I think if I need to be terrified, if I need to be distraught, if I need to feel to bring forth abandoned, there are, I have those cataloged. I realized I went totally negative there. There's also elated and there's joy and there's all those other things. But
he was asking about crying, so so that makes sense. I think we have an advantage in that we're voice actors, so that if you can just make it sound like you're crying, you don't actually have to cry in the booth. And like for Cherami and I, when it comes to dubbing stuff, we can't just straight up cry because we also have to match their body motions and the times where they go in the middle of all of it. So to keep your brain engaged with what's happening on screen, sometimes you have to disconnect your heart from the picture and just trust that I know how to mimic the sounds. But other times you have a lot more freedom because they're off screen. It's a lot more artistic, and it really just depends on the show.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, and sometimes, there's been moments. Usually I don't sit in a scene for that project. I'll read a script and usually I'll see where the beats are. And I'm like, yeah, I can see it says she starts to cry. I'm starting to cry just reading it. I'm moved by this piece, and usually if it's not something I'm connected to, I won't book it. Except in that situation. And I didn't pull anything from my past life or my past life experiences. I usually just try to create the scene, put myself in the scene. Where's the character? How do I associate with the character? And create a completely separate person, see the character as the character that I'm talking to, instead of being like, this is my brother in the scene, so I'm going to put my brother and my experiences with my brother in that. For me, that's just very confusing.
It's a little bit dangerous too.
For sure.
You aren't
For
in
sure.
a good emotional place to put your personal experiences into your like that.
For me also, and this is totally not what you asked, but I think it's very important, and I know for a lot of people it's like, that's totally ridiculous, but for me it has proved to be very accurate. When I'm doing emotional stuff all day, my body does not know the difference between something that was for acting and something that is real. And I had spoken to a chiropractor that said, just like when you're in a car accident, any sort of trauma that you experience sometimes gets locked in your muscles. So when you're doing a character and you're playing somebody who's killing somebody, or you watch somebody die, or you're really sad, and sometimes you leave at the end of the day, you're like, my arm is really sore, and then you remember while you were doing the scene you were like this the whole time because you locked all of those emotions in your arm. So for me, when I go home, I have to disconnect, do some quiet time meditation, journaling, yoga, something physical to just get it all out and release all of the emotions that I felt that day, so I don't wake up the next morning feeling like, why am I still angry? Why am I so tired? Why do I just feel gross? Because you just put yourself through trauma and your body doesn't know oh, it's okay. It was just anime. It was just work. Your body doesn't know the difference. If you're really feeling the emotional stuff, which you have to make somebody watching it feel that, you got to take care of yourself and allow yourself time to heal after you just put yourself through trauma.
Exactly. And so that brings us to our time. So if you all could say where folks can find you online, any upcoming panels or projects you'd like to promote.
I'm on Twitter at Cherami Leigh, on Instagram at CLKstar. I'm working on Fairy Tale right now. Final season. I say final because I'm in denial. I hope it's still going to come back later. Sword Art Online is coming back soon. Fire Emblem Three Houses just came out, and I voice Rhea. And then Cells at Work just came out a couple days ago, and people are just now getting it in the mail, and I voice Red Blood Cell. So those are the things I can talk about right now.
Yay! I'm Caitlin Glass. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, but I hardly ever use YouTube. But I do have a channel. I'm mainly on Twitter and Instagram. I'm Caitlin's Voice. And as I mentioned before, I'm still directing the new Fruits Basket. We've got a handful of episodes left in the season. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Cool. I'm Sean Weiland. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at male_NPC. Hex Support is coming out soon, which is a audio drama or whatever audio show based on workplace monsters. And I'll be on a panel tomorrow at 1 o'clock, audio drama production and you, and at
With
10
me.
p.m. with Ellie. And I have a live show at 10 p.m. Tomorrow night as well for my other podcast, Wasted Knowledge, where we're going to interview the head of the Mars Rover 2020 mission, Dr. Sarah Milkovich. And we're going to make her cocktails.
That's the wasted part.
Yes, Wasted Knowledge.
Yes, that was the joke.
Drunk personal history.
I'm Ellie Collins. You can find me on Twitter at Ellie_A_Collins. The new season of The Blood Crow Stories, which features cults in old Hollywood, premieres on October 31st on all podcasting apps. And I will be doing audio drama production in you tomorrow at 1 p.m. with Sean.
And my name is Kurt Boutin. I am on Twitter at VO by Kurt, and because I'm old, I'm also on Facebook at VO by Kurt. I am also doing Twitch streams on FTH Beyond and GSTU Media as part of the Giant Size Team Up Network. And I will be tomorrow, 1 p.m., Giant Size Team Up will be doing what we're calling Nerdywood Squares over here in the room with air conditioning, where we're doing a Hollywood Squares spinoff.
That will be awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining again.